Hey guys, thanks for listening to Kinda Dating, the comedy dating podcast where influential guests and I break down the dating world and try to figure out why the do we all have commitment issues. Today's topic is dating trends for 2024. Let's do this. Hello, Kinda Daters. I'm Natasha Chandel, and you're listening to Kinda Dating. Happy 2024. I don't know. I'm not like a New Year's Eve fan, but I am a New Year fan. So I am excited about that. And I'm excited to kick off our first episode of 2024, our first episode on YouTube, which this is over Zoom. I want to assure people that normally most episodes are in person. And so we have a nice little set and all of that. But when we have amazing guests like the one I'm about to introduce who are out of town, we do it over Zoom. And so it's going to look a little bit more like this. And I can't wait. I'm actually very excited that you guys are watching this on YouTube. So hello. And to our listeners, hello. I want to introduce one of you. She was a listener who turned into a friend and is now a valued member of the Kinda Dating team. She's a writer, a producer, and hosts her own podcast and has been in the podcast industry for the last 8 years. She's worked on shows like How to Be a Better Human, regarding thinking with Adam Grant and Sapiens. She has worked for places like TED, TED, like TED Talks, and PRX. Guys, just give an awesome welcome to Rithu Jagannath.
Woo!
Hi.
I'm giving myself applause.
Yes. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Oh my God, I'm so excited for 2024.
It's going to be a year. So let's see, has anything changed? Single or in a relationship?
Still single.
Still happy.
Still very happy, actually. Yeah.
That's what's important. And, you know, this episode, we're talking about dating trends for 2024. Bumble and Plenty of Fish dropped their annual summary of, they do surveys with their users and ask them different questions. And as a result of their answers, they surmise what they believe to be the dating trends of 2024. Some of these, and we're going to break them down for you, are funnier than others. Some are like, maybe this has been going on forever.
Yes.
But do you think, just before we jump into this, do these trends like change?
I think maybe words people use to describe patterns before change. I mean, I think recently I saw this article where it's talking about this whole set of words that Gen Z introduced into the dictionary this year just general vocabulary. And I just think that it's just different words to describe the same things we've experienced over time. And maybe it changes or resurges based on the world, but I think it's always been happening.
I have a whole bit in my stand-up about how Gen Z, I said that they make up new words for existing words. So it's like, we always said obviously was obvi, totally was totes. I'm like, they literally make up new words. I'm like, outfit is drip.
Yeah.
And like a fan is a stan. I'm like, what the
But also I didn't know this for a while, but when they're talking about charisma, it's Riz. I didn't know that. I didn't know that for the longest time. I was like, what?
Yeah, Riz is like a whole thing. It's very funny. That's what I'm saying. It's just like at least Riz came from charisma.
That's true.
Most words are like full on, just made up new words in the vocabulary. So I'm not surprised that there's all new words. So we're going to jump into these dating trends because there are a bunch of them and I want to get into them. So one that was on both the Bumble and Plenty of Fish one is cross-generational romance. So 63% of the people they surveyed on Bumble said age is no longer a defining factor for them when dating. 59% said that they were open. 59% of women said that they were open to dating someone younger. And 35% of women say that they're less judgmental about age gaps. How do you feel?
Never been judgmental about age gaps. I mean, my parents are, let's see, 11 years apart. So like
Oh.
there's a huge age gap there.
Who's the older one though?
My dad's the older one. But still like they've had an age gap. And honestly, like I think it doesn't really matter once you get to like a certain point. I think maybe when you're in your late 20s and onward, I feel like it matters less. But I think during really pivotal moments of your life, like, you know, just out of high school or finishing up college, it's still like you're getting the bearings of being an adult. So I think that's when it's kind of like icky or iffy. But aside from that, I think it's fine. Follow your bliss, you know?
It is weird though, right? Like, if you're 18 and dating a 28-year-old, it sounds.
It is. You are correct.
Yeah. If you are 25 dating a 35-year-old, still sounds 30 dating 40, okay.
Yeah.
35 dating 45, totally acceptable. Like completely normal. So it fully changes.
But yeah,
right?
I don't know why it does, but like I feel the way you just described. So I don't know why I feel that way.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. And I have admittedly never had an age that you know, it was fine. I didn't fuck him, but I was 16 dating a 21-year-old, you know?
Yeah.
And I was 20 with a 27-year-old boyfriend. Like I always had people that were older.
Yeah.
And it never mattered to me. What I was very surprised about and happy to read that it said 59% of women are open to dating someone younger.
Yeah.
Because we're still so used to older guys with younger women. I mean, I feel like sugar babies, sugar daddies, it's so common that the age gap thing doesn't surprise me when it comes to women dating older. But it's great to me when somebody is more comfortable dating somebody younger.
Yeah. It's so funny. I actually just recently had a conversation with someone about this because they were actually, this was yesterday. We were having a conversation about like how old we would go, like in terms of dating and, you know.
What age was yours?
I think for me, like maybe 40, 45, like I'd be okay. And for everyone to know I'm 28. So like that's a huge age gap, right? But I was even saying like, yeah, I'd probably date someone a few years younger than me. And the optimal word there is few years younger than me, because imagine me at 28 dating a 20-year-old or an 18-year-old. That would be gross. And I am not doing that. But I think I think the key here is that no matter what age you are, you still might not have your shit together. So it doesn't matter if you date older or younger. They have to just have to be the right fit for you, you know?
Yeah. And also look, guys date younger for fun and women should also date younger for fun. Like, I was challenging somebody's belief who was on the podcast recently, who was, you know, saying that men like dating younger because of the way women look and blah, blah, blah. And I said, boo-boo, I just want you to know, like, guys also looked much hotter when they're younger. And so we also like that. Like, if you're going to give me, you know, when I had a one night stand with a 22-year-old, he was fucking gorgeous.
Yeah.
Like,
fuck off. Gorgeous. Like,
so it works both ways is my whole point. So I'm like, go have your fun. So that one didn't surprise me, to be honest.
Yeah.
The next one is called val-core dating. Such stupid terms. That's
I know. I actually, you know what? I read that and I was like, I get the purpose of this, but I hate
the terms.
Yes.
I hate that we call things like haunting. And it was fine. You know, it was cute in the beginning.
Breadcrumbing, ghosting, you know, like.
It was cute when we first heard it, right? Oh, ghosting, slow fading.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, val-core dating, like, stop.
Yeah. Just stop it.
Just stop. I just like, I felt like I had to put a period on that and pause.
Yeah.
they say since the pandemic, there's been a rise in people wanting to date people who care about the social causes they care about. So, for example, green dating or political and social causes. And they said women are less open to dating people with different political views than men.
Yeah.
That I've actually heard.
Yes.
I've heard from men that, and there was a story recently that somebody was actually, it was a story of Donald Trump's, one of his strategists,
Okay.
said that he has a hard time dating. And
Okay.
he's open to
Oh,
dating
yeah.
women who have an opposing point of view. But the second he's on a date and they find out
He's
who
Republican.
who
Yeah.
his boss was, he
Yeah.
wasn't just Republican. He
Yeah.
was
He was the
Donald
ultimate
Trump's
Republican.
campaign
Yeah.
guy. They immediately, he's like, I've had women leave right there and then.
Yeah.
Does that sound like, okay, now that there are lots of things happening in the world, do you think you could date somebody who saw things differently?
Okay. So, I mean, this is like, I mean, I hate to reflect back on the word that they chose, but it's a core value, right? And I'm not saying I can't date people that are different from me or have differing opinions than me. I think that's actually what makes life more interesting, is having a good like exchange with whoever you're dating. But I think there are some fundamental things where like we'll draw the line. Obviously, racism, homophobia, xenophobia, like misogyny, you name it. If they embody those things, or at least, and I've been on dates where I've challenged like, I've challenged some people. Oh, actually, there was someone that I had like matched with on a dating app. And this was during the whole like vaccine stuff with COVID. And he was like I don't know if you heard about the convoys. You heard about the convoys, right? Like the one. So basically, there were a bunch in Canada. There were a bunch of like truck drivers that were basically convoying across Canada because they were anti-vax for some reason.
Yes.
And so, yeah. And so this person was just like, oh, um, you're so gorgeous, blah, blah, blah. It's so, it would be such a shame if you were like it's such a shame that you say that you're vaccinated on your profile. Right. And I was just like, I'm curious to know why that's come up for you. And then he kept like saying something of being like, you're a sheep, you're this, you're that. And then just kept like saying all those things. And I was like,
the
all right.
keywords that I call
Yeah.
them, the buzzwords. Yeah.
The buzzwords. Yeah. And I just kept thinking like, these are just fundamental things that it's a non-negotiable. These are deal breakers. These are actual deal breakers. Like, I mean, sure, the wait staff thing that I said earlier, yes, also a deal breaker. But I think these are like fundamental life-changing things. If you actively vote for Donald Trump and we're dating, you are anti-women, period. It's plain and simple,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so for me, it's like, yeah, there is some truth to it. I think it's key for there to be some common ground in terms of political and social causes, because if you don't have those core values around people's identities, their rights, all of that, then what do you agree on? Otherwise it's not deep dating. There's no true intimacy, right? You're just dating for fun.
Yeah. And look, I do think there are pros and cons to this, right? I do think it's good in the sense that the world is very polarizing right now and people have extreme beliefs. And you got to know, like, do you want to be arguing about this all day?
Yes.
And trying to change somebody's like you said, core belief or core value when you probably can't anyway. So as somebody who used to date Republicans pre-Trump days, I just didn't ask. I didn't think of it as a thing. I now can't because I don't want to have these discussions. But I have no judgment towards that. But I also get the social cause thing. Like the world has become, there's so much tragedy in the world. it's hard to be with somebody who's like apathetic to that.
Yeah.
Or
Or has no
apathetic to that.
sympathy
Yeah.
for genocide. I don't know. Like,
For anything,
yeah,
right? Any of the issues, whatever is important to you, but to have just indifference to everything.
it's apathy. It's
Yeah.
just, yeah.
Yeah, it's just not attractive, and especially for like I get it as like Gen Zers are even more socially aroused and they are like a lot more activists,
Yeah.
and so wanting to know that your person cares about something matters. Um, the con to me is uh, that because we are so polarized, I fear that this makes everybody just like stay in their lane or stay
Mm,
with people in their lane, and we kind of get more segregated.
yeah.
Um, but it's really a result of the fact that people are at such extreme odds that there is
Yeah.
no middle ground to play with.
No.
Um, and so I get it in that sense.
Yeah.
I understand why people would choose what they choose. It just kind of sucks in the sense when you think of a big picture and you go, is this making us more segregated? And when can we start having some kind of middle ground to work with?
Yeah. I think that the middle ground thing, it comes with like, you know, I think if you're able to have meaningful discussions with people without getting your egos in the way,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's the thing too. It's like, I don't think I've ever told you the story. Have I ever told you that I went to go see Ben Shapiro like a while back?
No.
Oh, this is such a funny story. But basically, when I was going to UBC, there's something called the Free Speech Club. Okay, that they're all about free speech and blah. And so I went. Ironically, it was on Halloween. Okay. And so, you know me, I love Halloween. I always dress up for Halloween.
Mhm.
And so I wear the same Halloween costume to work every year because I don't have to think about it, which is I dress up as the devil.
Love it.
Okay. And so I went to this event and the event invite said, dress up in your Halloween costume and we will give you a special treat. And I was like, awesome. Yeah, I can go straight from work. Show up in my devil costume. Everyone is wearing MAGA hats. Like everyone is wearing MAGA hats. Okay. And I'm there in a devil costume and I'm getting daggers, like absolute eye daggers from all these people. And I realized it's because they thought I was making a political statement with my costume.
Oh, that's funny.
And I was like, why is everyone staring at me? And they're like, they think that you're like calling Ben Shapiro the devil or like something. And so, anyways, the whole point of me going, and this is like from my perspective, I'm liberal, very left, right? Um, and my perception was, let me go into this so I can see how the opposite end of the spectrum thinks in comparison to me. I'm curious to know where their values stand and why they believe what they believe so that I have some common ground to have a discussion. Right. And it was so, I felt like I was in like the twilight zone. It felt so weird to be there because, I was maybe one of, I don't know, 4 or 5 people of color, like
Wow.
in my section. And like, this is a huge auditorium that can fill like 2,000 something people. Right. And so it was just such a weird concept. And I think that like, you can have your differences with your partner. You can have different core values, but I think it's about maintaining a level of respect and also having discourse and being able to have a discussion respectfully with keeping your egos in check, where you can actually exchange ideas and maybe like compromise on some values, right?
I think that's very, very key because you are never going to agree on every single thing in your life, but uh, how you can debate those issues, I think, is very important. Like I always tell people, I love debating.
Yeah,
I
me too.
love it.
I love a
But
good argument.
but I see. I actually, I'm always telling them, like, I'm not arguing with you. I'm
Yeah.
truly debating, which means
Yeah.
I don't use curse words. I don't use
Oh,
buzzwords.
yeah.
I don't call people names,
Yeah.
and I just stick to points. But when I do that, like I love that. And I love being
Yeah.
able to do that with somebody. But if somebody like reverts back to some kind of weird name calling, or like you said, you tried to message somebody and they were like snowflake or whatever, I'd be like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
bye. Like if we're
yeah,
using buzzwords, bye.
yeah.
Um, the next one is very interesting.
Okay.
And I'm not surprised, but I was like, oh wow. So it says that people are tired of self-improvement.
Mm.
So 55% of singles feel constant pressure to improve themselves. Um, and now it says uh, 40% of women will now only date people who won't try to change them. So it's basically that so many people are feeling this pressure to improve that they're getting like tired of this like get better, self-improvement process. Um, and I can see this. I had a good friend tell me a story about how he dated a woman who he was really into, but he wasn't allowed to date her until he had done therapy for what she deemed to have been a significant amount of time
That,
to be able to be with her.
I
And
mean, kudos to him for going to therapy to go and date her. Are they still together?
no,
Okay.
no.
Yeah.
And but that was from her trauma, and so she put that her trauma projected it onto somebody else, and I've seen a lot of friends. Dia, who's been on this podcast, and have often talked about it. We grew up very into spirituality, very much into self-improvement. I have a shit ton of books. I've probably read everything in this space from any major author. I've loved this, but it can also be a trap, right? It can make you actually question yourself and your self-worth even more than when you begin, because it puts you on this path of perfection. And there is no perfection. And there is no being whole. So I'm curious, how have you felt in the process? Like, do you think, or your friends, like, has it been this, like, do you feel a pressure to constantly be better?
So, I used to be, and I will admit my fault in this. I used to be in the camp of like, I need to be fully healed to be in a good relationship. I need to be the best of the best, the absolute like best version of myself in order to show up in my next relationship as the best partner for my person. And I realized through therapy and also just through experiencing my life is that you can only heal so much until you can heal within a relationship. And you can also improve only when you have someone to improve with,
Mm-hmm.
right? And those are skills that you build when you're in a relationship. It's not things that you can do by yourself. Um, and speaking of needing to constantly improve, I am all about self-improvement, very much like you. I think it's something that really drives me because I think it really fuels like a purpose, a deep purpose within myself. And I know that's not the case for everyone else. What I will say is that I understand the sheer tiredness of having to constantly work on yourself. And in reality, I think people should, if they're thinking about improvement, they should think about what fulfills them, not what they think they should be doing. Right? I think that's where the hang up is people are like, you know, uh, I had a couple of friends and I love them to bits, but they would have a breakup, right? And then they would, after their breakup, they're like, I need to be single for a while. I need to work on myself. I need to think about myself. In that process, what are they doing? They're working out. They're trying to get hot or skinny or
Mm-hmm.
whatever they want. They're trying to go out with friends more and like hit the streets, so to speak. But in reality, is that really any work on like you, like on the things that actually need work? And yeah, that does take time, that does take effort. But it's just a longer, slower journey. And it doesn't have to happen in like a very vacuum like space of time so you can get into the next relationship. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think also, um, kind of like what you said, you have to know the reason of why you're doing something. So if you are, because the fact that it says that there are 40% of women who will only date people who won't try to change them tells me that 40% of women think people are trying to change them.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are improving for someone else, it won't last. And
Yeah.
that includes anything like there's a breakup and I'm going to go hit the gym,
Yeah.
because it's a reactive thing to something that's happening versus going, I just want a healthy lifestyle that won't get affected whether I'm in a relationship or not.
Yeah.
Um, and same
I'm
thing with self.
moving my body because I want to feel good about myself.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. And that's why, especially that specific movement, let's say the fitness thing,
Yeah.
it's why you see so many people the second they are in a relationship, they aren't as fit anymore.
Yeah.
And it's because they weren't doing it for themselves. They were doing it to get somebody else.
Yeah.
So, but I do think that this concept of like, well, you have to be whole. And I think I've also prescribed to that before. I'm sure we've probably talked about it in early days too. And I don't think it ever means that like nobody's ever going to be perfect.
Yeah. Well, you're
Ever.
always growing. You're
Ever.
always, yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone has their faults. Everyone has their thing that they need to work on. And maybe some things take more time than other things, but you're still constantly working on yourself.
Yeah. I think the idea is to get to a point where hopefully you are less triggered by everything.
Mm,
Because really the sense of wholeness comes from that, right? It comes
Yeah.
from a level of just like peace with whoever you are. And that doesn't mean you have to be perfect by then. It just means that you have to be comfortable being whatever you are in that moment
Yeah.
without anger, jadedness, resentment, just peace.
You know what came up for me when you said that? The first word that popped into my mind was security. They're
Mm.
so secure in themselves. And that doesn't mean they don't have insecurities or they don't have things that like pull them in some, because we're all human, right? We can't be
Mhm.
like freaking robots,
Totally.
And I think it's about owning your shit and feeling secure in everything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I do think I get this. I get this a lot, and it's why I'm very wary of self-help things out there because I don't think that they often uh have nuance or explain balance to people because you can become obsessive with trying to be perfect, and that just feeds more perfectionism.
I was just saying, like, to add to that, toxic positivity is just such bullshit. And it's part of this whole like self improvement crap. And it's like, not everything's hunky dory, like things will get better when they get better. But I just pretending that everything's going to be fine and, constantly being like, work on yourself, be grateful, do this, do this. And saying that all the time, it just feeds into that. Right.
I hate toxic positivity. Again, I used to be in a cult and that was like the number one thing, like, be positive, be positive, be positive, be positive. And it fucking leads to repression. It leads
Yeah.
to anger issues. It leads to fucking eating disorders. It leads to a lot of things. So it's okay to not be happy. It's okay to not enjoy a process. It's okay for dating to suck if it feels like that right now. Just the idea is don't dwell in that moment forever. At some point, let yourself like pick yourself back up out of that. And it's okay. And it's a fun journey to just like be who you are
Yeah.
and you'll improve in time. Like whenever you're meant to,
Yeah.
you have to take some steps towards it. Like, but it doesn't have to consume you. Um, just like enjoy the journey. It's again, it sounds so like cliche, but it
Yeah.
really is.
And I think there's a sense of like urgency or impatience that come with it. But if you remove time from the equation, if you just like get rid of the constraint of time and you're just like going through it with no deadlines, no nothing, like you'll feel so much better about it at the end of the day.
Mhm. And also, I was just thinking this as you were talking, is that the journey of self-improvement is like going to school, right?
Mm.
Once you pass grade 1, you get into grade 2 and you get new lessons and new tests and new quizzes. And then you pass that and you go to grade 3. That's the improvement process. People just want to go from grade 1 to graduated, nirvana. And I'm like, that's not going to happen.
No.
So you're just passing little milestones through your life. And once you pass that test and you think you got it together, you're going to get something new. I feel like as somebody who's been relatively secure-ish for a while now in this marriage phase, and wedding phase, engagement, I'm like all kinds of triggered. And I'm like, oh shit, this is new tests.
Yeah.
And now I got to find my balance again in that. But it's also okay to not be perfect.
Yes.
He and I had an argument about the wedding, the planning. And I was like, I don't like this. And he was just like, no, but you should like it. This is the most important day of our life. And I felt bad. And I was like, all right. And I was like, okay, what's the balance of that? It can't be me who's like, don't like this at all. And it can't be him who is just be happy about it all the time. So I had to talk to him and I was like, listen, you have to understand that this is a really hard process for me because I'm going against something I told myself a narrative about for a long time. So I might not enjoy this process all the time.
Yeah.
And you got to be okay with that. I said, that said, I will work on trying to enjoy it more and being less triggered about it and breathing through the process a little bit more and trusting that it'll work out.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay. So again, new tests, new thing. Now you have to apply it. It's an always ongoing process, basically, is the point. This next one, I totally am behind. Saying it in advance. Emotional intimacy. It says 32% of people believe emotional intimacy is more important than sex. I really feel like that's true.
That is 100%. I am also behind this.
I'm like, if someone is emotionally mature, you can actually talk to them about sex and make it better.
Yes, totally. Totally. I think a lot of people talk about chemistry, and I feel like you can also really get a sense of chemistry through emotional intimacy. Mm-hmm. For me, at least. I don't know if you feel that way, but I feel that way. Yeah.
Oh, totally. I mean, it's it's something I truly didn't think about until just a few years ago, of how important emotional intelligence and having that emotional intimacy is with somebody, to be able to be vulnerable, to be able to talk about things in a respectful way, to be able to express an emotion and have somebody hold it with some form of maturity makes such a huge difference. And in those ways, I do think therapy helps to get people to that. But you don't need to have therapy, guys. You can read books and just be a little bit more empathetic. But I will back that one. I think emotional intimacy and emotional intelligence are very important.
I think it's fundamental. I think it's a key part of having a really strong relationship. And maybe this is just if I had to assign a trope to my life, it's almost always friends to lovers. That's if I had to put a romantic book trope on my life, it's always friends to lovers. And I think it's because I so deeply value getting to know someone on an emotional, mental level. It just feels so much better when you start dating them or you move into a relationship when you truly are emotionally connected and intimate in that way.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand this is a very scary thing, especially coming out of a generation. I feel like millennials were not emotionally intimate. I think we were the generation that kind of shut down a lot. Nobody I ever met when I went on dates opened up in that way. It took a lot of time. The ones who did almost were like love bombing you, you know, like it was too much. But yeah, like I think having a healthy balance of that is so, so important to tell people who you are, you know, what scares you, what makes you happy, what you're insecure about, and have it received in a positive way. I think it's a very important thing.
And something also just came up for me as you were saying that. I think when you're emotionally intimate with someone and they know all of those things about you, they actually know your expectations around the ways in which your relationships are and how you feel happy in your relationships. And you can actually very quickly find out whether or not you're compatible if you're emotionally open with people and you get to know them on that level.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I don't know if you need to be like emotionally intimate on date one.
No.
But, but I do think once you've established like maybe this person's around, I do think dropping little nuggets and seeing how it's received will show you if your partner is available for that level of thing. But I do think it's like very, very important. I mean, and it's truly the thing that will keep a relationship going because it's a form of communication. So if it's something you want lasting, you gotta learn to be
Emotionally
fucking
intimate.
naked when it comes to your emotions.
Bare your soul.
Yes. It's so weird. So on one end, it says that people are tired of self-improvement, but according to the study, it says self-care still rules. So 58% of people are more open about their mental health, and 31% are slow dating, which means they prefer quality versus quantity, which I was so happy to hear. I was
yes,
like,
that's great. That's great news for me as a single person. That's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because I was saying recently that I'm annoyed that like I'm reading all these articles and books and it feels like we're back in like 2000 fucking 8, you know? That was, I meant to say 2015. But it feels like back when we first started this podcast, it used to be this thing of, I went on, people used to write my 200 first dates, around, whatever it was, like around the world in 80 dates. Like everybody like quantified dating. And it used to be a shtick, a lot of books were written like that. A lot of movies were made like that.
How to lose a guy in 10 days.
Yes, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
But it like quantified everything. And I just find it like a tired old trope now that people still think it's like a numbers game. People are still writing articles like my 20 dates in 2 weeks. I'm like, really? Like nobody cares. You know how many dating stories we've all heard? Like nobody cares.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that there are 31% of people that are open to quality versus quantity. Because at this point, like, we know that it's not just enough about numbers. Like, you're just going to swipe on everybody now? Like, and then you're going to be surprised that they don't meet half your qualities? And like, you didn't read the fucking half the profile that shows you that they're probably not a fit.
Well, yeah, if someone's like looking for a good time and you're like, I'm looking for my long-term relationship and you swipe right on them, they're not going to like, you're just going to end up disappointed. Right. I think.
And I think just like being honest about whatever it is that you want, right? Like,
yes,
it does limit your pool. I actually said that to myself. Like when I got it back on the dating app, the one I met Luis on, I paid and I put in all these fucking like a giant list of things I didn't want. Yeah, of things I did not want. Yeah. And I knew, and I said to myself, this is going to limit a lot of people. And I said, that's okay, because I'm not looking for everybody. And it's true, like, don't waste your time. If you know that there's types of people that you're really like, they're on your non-negotiable list, just don't fucking do it.
And I think too, like, I hate to say this, but there are some people that will match with people like that, or like, for example, that they don't share the same like dating values as you. Like, so for example, someone's like, I'm in an open relationship, or, I'm ethically non-monogamous, or I believe in polyamory. And then the other person's like, I'm a hardcore serial monogamist. But then they'll still go after this person um in hopes of like maybe changing them, or like making them, or like they have this fear of missing out on this person, so they'll try and compromise their values in order to like go out with this person, and then they end up still getting their feelings hurt. And I'm like, come on, my dude. Come on. Like, you could have avoided this by being very picky about exactly what you want.
I'm going to go so far as saying people should judge. I remember talking to my friends about this, where a girl sent me, one of my friends was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe this guy. Like, he sent me a dick pic." And I was like, "Oh, let me see the profile." Cause I was like, how come nobody sends me a dick pic? And I looked at his profile and I go, "Girl, he looks like somebody who's going to send you a fucking dick pic." And it was just clear, right? It was like a guy who's mean mugging and
Oh yeah, shirtless
shirtless pictures.
Yeah, I knew
like
it.
just classic shit. And he had nothing in his bio, like nothing. And I was like,
27.
because he thinks he's just so hot that.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that's the guy who's going to send you a dick pic. Of course it is.
Yeah.
And so in that way, but it was like, it's a numbers game. And I'm like, no, it's your time game. This is you using your time, and you're wasting your time. And if your time is valuable, then don't fucking do that.
So judge people. People.
I'm always, listen, I'm like an INTJ, and that J is like hard for me. I'm like,
oh my God, I'm an ENFJ. So the J is also very hard for me. Yeah.
Because I judge the shit out of people.
Oh, me too.
But I tell everybody, I'm like, I'm not judging you based on like the color of your skin or your education, not dumb shit like that.
Yeah.
But if you come up to me and you act stupid, I have judged you. If I see you outside and I am judging the shit. I'm like, you are a dumbass. Like most people are exactly what they seem. It's like it's like when you watch 2020, or in real life, people are like, it's always a person you most suspect. It's not like only murders in the building.
Yeah.
It's not the person you least suspect. It's always a person you most suspect. Because people are exactly what they fucking seem like.
Yeah. You know what? It's so funny when you were like, when people are stupid, I fucking judge them. And I'm like, that, as you said that, the same words were forming in my mind. Like, I am so fucking judgmental. And I think in this case, like, judgment keeps your standards in check. Like, it totally keeps your standards in check. And also, like, maybe it's being like a little bit scrutinizing about people in general. But I think at the end of the day, it just protects you, right? And just, yeah.
I like to think of judgment as using critical thinking.
100%.
Everything is information being presented to you. Somebody is presenting themselves in a certain way to you. So your job is to discern that information and go, is this right for me or not? We're not saying this person is good or bad or right or wrong. Is that person okay for me? And when they're not, that's it. And I can only say this because I used to be the opposite human. I never judged anybody. I used to be that, fucking
sweet angel baby.
Yeah, literally like halo fucking unicorns over my head. Like I thought everybody was trustworthy. I thought, be kind to people and they'll be kind back to you. And I realized that so many people showed me who they were. And I refused to use my critical thinking because I thought I'm some fucking angel or some shit, where I was like some martyr shit. And I don't know what you think in your head, right? But you think like, I'm a better person for not judging them. And then I wasted my time and I was fucking heartbroken or whatever. And then I just learned, like, again, don't judge people for stupid reasons.
Yeah.
But judge them on their behavior.
Yeah.
And if they're talking to you a certain way, now I know very quickly if like somebody's a fuck boy. I can tell in like 5 seconds of that conversation. Who did I meet the other day? that I went out and I was like, oh, this guy's so charming. I was like, fuck boy. I was like, noted in my head, like, and it was a comedian.
Oh
And
yeah.
and I went to do a show, and he was just like, he didn't know that I was engaged yet,
Yeah.
and so he was literally just like, guys, you can't see this, YouTube audience can see this. He was just like, came so close to my face and was just like gazing in my eyes for a second. He was like, yeah, it's so great to have you here today. And he just did the whole thing. And
Just want to punch that guy.
I'm telling you, old me, he's a good looking guy. I was like,
Yeah.
old me, if I were single, I might have done some dumb shit.
Yeah.
But like, I'm talking old me, right?
Yeah.
Not I don't even consider myself 2.0. I consider myself 3.0.
Yeah.
But like 1.0 Tash would have totally been like, whatever.
Yeah.
Now I look at this person and I just laugh. I'm like, oh, he's a fuck boy. I was like, yep, noted. Like, moving on. And I just like literally I put my hand out,
Like,
and then he was like, oh my God, are you engaged now? And he goes, are you married? And I said, oh yeah, I just got engaged. And he's like, I don't even know what to say about. And I was like,
he got caught in his fuckboy behavior. That's what happened.
and then he just didn't talk to me the rest of the night. And I was like, there it is.
That's so funny. And honestly, embarrassing. He should be embarrassed. He should be 100% embarrassed.
Yeah. And then after that, it's been all these messages like, yo, fam. I was like, no.
Yo, fam.
Yeah. Like now
I feel like he's doubling down.
Yeah. I'm like, I want to make sure. I was just letting you know. I just cared about you as a friend. I was like,
Hi, friend.
Yeah. But again, like you can just tell from a person very quickly from the way they were speaking, the manner of behavior. I was like, that would have been a waste of my time.
Yeah.
So, not the nicest thing to say, I know, guys, but I'm just saying. We're going to wrap out this episode with two more. One is open-hearted masculinity. It's a growing trend, they say, even among men. I don't know if you know Professor Scott Galloway from the Pivot podcast or Prof G. Really great marketing executive, whatever he is, guru. And he has a whole campaign about trying to have like more positive masculinity. We've also had a guest on the podcast, James Tang, who's a big influencer.
I love James.
I love James, right?
Yeah, he's so cool.
And he's so nice. And he talks a lot about positive masculinity. And so they say 31% of men are becoming more open and vulnerable with partners. How would you perceive an open-hearted man or open-hearted masculinity as a female?
I would instantly cave. I would instantly fall for this person because I think, well, I mean, actually, it's funny because I was reading this too, and it was saying they were talking about it, to preface the stat. They were talking about the alpha male Andrew Tate kind of vibe. You know, that being the centerpiece in like 2023 for a lot of young boys, young men, and the reality is that like I've seen a lot of different people have experienced that, like in their day-to-day lives, of men being like, you must submit to me. You must like, you know, you are the woman. You should be doing X. And I'm like, no, I can't deal with this on top of everything else. I don't have the space for this. So if someone was like very much open-hearted and vulnerable and like really embracing their masculinity in a way that's not putting down women and not about the patriarchy, I am very pro that. I am super, I would literally be like, yes, can we please go out? I would love to go out on a date with you.
Yeah. And listen, you know, there's so much controversy around this issue right now because, again, you know, Trumpism has taken over, and that the hard right is very anti this, you know, they're very hard about men need to be men or whatever qualifies a man as a man. And it's really detrimental, and they don't realize how insecure that is.
Yes.
For these guys who think that they're so fucking macho. I'm like, you're so macho, but you're so fucking deeply insecure. Like
so fragile. Like literally I could just do that and they would just shatter.
Correct.
Their entire ego and masculinity would fall apart.
And I can't tell you how sexy it is because I've been with those people. I've been with more than one of those people, right? Who are so like, I'm the man. And sometimes we're attracted to those people too because they kind of give off this like very uber, masculine energy. I find it very unattractive now. But now that I'm with somebody who, you guys have heard him on the podcast too. He is like, Luis is pretty alpha in life, but he is such a secure alpha. Like he is so calm and like, when we're talking about, hey, do you want to, like, what if I bump into my ex or something? He's like, yeah, it's totally fine.
Sure, whatever.
Like we're not, and anytime we're talking, we'll talk about our feelings. He tells me about his feelings. And it's so attractive.
Yeah.
Because he is a dude. Like, he is a man. Like, the guy is every quintessential version of what a man, like, he's very strong. He's attractive. He's a big guy. He's whatever. Yeah. I'm like, but I don't care about that. What makes him actually seem like a real man to me is that he is okay having multiple sides to him. Yeah. And is not this like one note dude. And he's okay with talking about his feelings and my feelings. And he treats me with great respect. That is like such a turn on to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm just like, I hope more than 31% of men do this because I hope to hear it from us that it's actually very attractive.
It's super attractive. And I know that there would like, I think there are so many women that would actually love to date men that are like that secure alpha, that open-hearted, like masculine vibe. I think that the thing is, oftentimes people think like men are masculine, women are feminine, but I think men and women both carry the characteristics of femininity and masculinity, and it's really like a balance. And I think really owning both sides of that in your identity will make you feel more secure, And I think it doesn't, yes. I feel like the most important part is like, just because you're not like, I don't know, Andrew Tate alpha dude, like that's not going to get you laid. It's literally not not at all. You are not going to get any dates. Women are literally going to cringe when they see you. Like
and look, you might get laid. I'll be honest. Those people do get laid and they might get laid. But here's the thing. Probably people who have their own
issues. Yeah.
Let's just keep it real. Like there's a type of person that's attracted to that type of person. Yeah. And there are people who have their own issues. And look, there's somebody for everybody out there. The part that bothers me is that like, and I think you said it well, people have both of these energies in them. And not everything is a zero-sum game where it's, it doesn't have to be one extreme or the other extreme. It doesn't have to be black or white. You're not all masculine, all feminine. And even when I was watching this fucking Twin Flames documentary.
Oh my God, I haven't seen it.
My God. It got me so mad, so angry that people fall for this. But also, very simply, they talk about, they started just labeling people based off the way they looked. As if you were masculine or feminine, including women. So they would look at a woman and if they just, from her look, they felt she looked more masculine, they said, you're a man now. And it's like, what? And they said, yeah, you're a man and you are changing to your masculine energy and you're changing your pronouns. So it's just like this point that And they called it masculine energy and feminine, your inner masculine, your inner divine, your divine feminine, divine masculine. I hate these terms. Yeah. And they don't realize that everybody has a bit of both. And I think the hard right sees it as men who have feelings are soft. And it's like they're secure.
Yeah.
Because you know that you're not going to be broken by sharing your feelings.
Yes. And also like, I think about the fact that they think that like sharing your feelings is soft, but like, how do you expect to raise a family? How do you expect to build like,
they want to raise the families the way they did back in like the 1950s.
Which is crazy to me in the world that we live in. Like,
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's so lovely to meet people that are emotionally open, that are very comfortable with their masculinity and are open to all of that. Being
Yeah.
vulnerable and being open.
No, it's true. The last one that they had was a relationship timeline decline. So it says that more people, in the last many years, have been coming out. So identifying as some, whatever they identify with that is not cisgender,
Yeah.
heterosexual, um, with the rise of ENM, so
Yeah.
ethical non-monogamy.
Non-monogamy.
31% of women don't adhere to traditional timelines and milestones. How do you feel? Do you think that's a real thing, or
That women are no longer focusing on traditional timelines and milestones? Yeah, I think so.
yeah,
I think so. I mean, I'm a great example of that. I think you're a great example of
yeah,
that too. And I think that it's not that, and I think I said this earlier, I can't remember if it was this time or maybe a different time, but I said that when we relinquish kind of control over time and like specific timelines, I think you end up enjoying a lot more without putting this pressure on yourself. Right. And I think there's so many other things, like, for example, if you want kids, right, and you're a woman, there's this like, oh my God, you need to have kids by this time, or you're not going to be able to have children of your own. Firstly, like, you're a narcissist if you think that you can only give love to your own child, their biological child. You can adopt, you can foster. There's so many things you can do. And if you do want to have your biological child, there's freezing your eggs, there's doing like in vitro, surrogate. There's so many options.
yeah.
And I think that in this day and age, with all of those options, that women feeling comfortable with not sticking to traditional timelines and milestones, not only does it allow them to take their time to build their career or whatever else they want, it also gives them the opportunity to wait around till they find the right person they want to have those things with, without the
Oh yeah,
constraints of time, you know?
yeah. It's really true. I mean, for me, we talk about this a lot, Luis and I, where we're good because we lived a life
Mm,
before we met the other person. And that was partially because I didn't give a fuck about a timeline. I wasn't like I was going to get married by this time or do something by this time because the world told me to. I very was like, man, it's never going to happen. And that's great. I'm going to be like an 80-year-old by myself, chilling on a beach somewhere. Like, I was totally great with that option. But as a result of that, I had a lot of fun in my life. I've lived a life. I've dated a lot. I have had many partners. And it just made me value the partnership I have now even more, because I don't have anything to get out of my system. I got it out of my system.
yeah.
He got
You're
it
like,
out
I
of his
had fun.
system. He
Yeah.
had so much fun too. And so I'm like, great. But if we had stuck to some timeline, maybe there would have been this feeling of like, did we miss out?
Yeah.
I also think, and I liked this, where it was like the relationship timeline declining. And there's so many timelines, right? I don't exactly know what they were talking about. Is it the timeline of like getting into a relationship, being official? Is it the timeline of sex?
Yeah.
Because I remember having this argument with, Evan Mark Katz on the
Yeah.
show.
Yeah, I remember.
Debate about when to have sex. And I was telling him, I was like, I don't think fucking people are adhering to this. And I don't think we should be putting this message out that people need to adhere to some timeline to have sex with somebody. Like only when they're
People
your
should do when
boyfriend.
they feel good about when they want to do it. And there are some people that I know that literally slept with their now boyfriend, now husband on the first date, and now they're
Ours was
together.
the third.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it happens.
Yeah. And so it's just like, but again, if you're with somebody and you slept with them on the first date and they judge you for it, they're not the person for you. But you're not going to feel bad if you did it because you wanted to. So who gives a fuck about them? but yeah, I am glad that people aren't, no part of our life is traditional anymore. So I
No.
don't know why timelines should be. It's like, listen, if the world wants to, or some fucking old school men want to make us adhere to some form of traditional lifestyle, I'm like,
Mhm.
bitch, you better give me the fucking stock market that you guys had in fucking 1940s. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
give me all the traditional things you guys got, and then I'll give you fucking tradition back.
Yeah.
But don't throw uh, pandemics and two recessions and changing ways of life and fucking AI taking over jobs and tech revolutions and then expect me to function the exact same way as a human that
Yeah.
you guys did in the 40s when nobody can afford a house. They can't. So like
You can't hold
you
us to
can't
the
have
same
the same
you
timelines.
can't, yeah, and you can't hold people to the same expectations of then because time has changed. Everything's fucking changed. So
When
like,
my mom talks about it, I'm always like, Ma, like
yeah,
we, having a kid now is like, you need to have a fucking giant ass savings to like have a kid. And she's
yeah.
like, no, but you'll figure it out. I'm like, bitch, this isn't what
No,
it was back in the day.
it's not. And I have the same pressure from my mom to like settle down and get married and do that like whole thing. And it's like, she says it's I want you to be taken care of. I want you to be settled. That's the very Indian mom way
Very
of saying
Indian.
I want you to be settled. And in reality, like, sure, she wants me to be settled, but I think there's a lot of like tradition and familial expectation and everything that sits behind that, behind the scenes. And so, like, I remember, her at 25 being like, wow, I can't believe you're unmarried. And it's like, mom, come on. Like,
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and every other person, I think you included, every other person that I've talked to about this, they're like, babe, you're so young. You're just a little
So,
baby.
such a baby.
You're just a
Such
little
a
baby.
baby.
And, considering that my mom got married when she was 24, 25, it makes sense that she thinks that I'm like old news now. But in reality, times have changed and expectations have changed. And I think that with that, there is no pressure. There is no timeline. None of that matters. Just throw it out the fucking window.
Because nobody's going to live your life but you. Like
Yes.
at the end of the day, people go back to their own lives and they do whatever. And like, I get it. And I feel bad that you have that pressure because of course I did too. My dad wanted me married when I was 18.
Babe,
Why aren't you married? And
are
I was
you
like, are
kidding?
you on crack? Because my dad is like mad old school. I had to
Oh,
break
how
the
old is
shit
your
out of
dad?
it. He's like 70. So they had me very late for them. So
Yeah, my dad's 70.
74? He's turning 75 in March. Yeah. But like his mentality, because he had no women in his house, was like 1920s India.
Yeah.
Like I don't even like my aunts, uncles, nobody's like that. But my dad's stuck like that.
Yeah.
And, or was. And I
Yeah.
had to break that shit. And I was like,
Yeah.
this is not how the world works now, not
Yeah.
doing something just because you want me to do something.
Yeah. That's me and my mom. I'm just
Yeah.
like, sorry. Sorry, that's not happening. Please enjoy this. You
Yeah.
get this.
Yeah. And like they'll eventually see that you're settled regardless. Like you
Yeah.
don't need that to be settled. Um, so yeah, I am glad that people are doing their own thing a little bit and figuring out what works for them because I don't believe in formulas and tradition. So
Yeah, me neither.
fuck that.
Fuck that.
Yeah. So, as we wrap out this, like, does any of this feel like super mind blowing to you?
Not really. I mean, like, these are some things that I already knew in the back of my mind. I actually think the only one that was kind of like a pleasant surprise was the one about open-hearted masculinity.
Yes.
Because, I think we're so stuck in our like negative hole that we don't often like look up to see what the positive thing is.
Yeah.
But everything else, I was just like, yeah, I've been there, done that, heard this, seen this, experienced this, right? Like I've seen so many people that have been in relationships that have gone from being like a fully committed monogamous relationship to experiencing like ethical non-monogamy or moving into polyamory or, some people breaking up with their partners because they want to focus on themselves and really grow and focus on improving themselves. And like the values-based dating, I feel like everyone's been doing that for decades, for years, you know? So to say that this is a 2024 trend, I think is kind of bullshit. But that's just my
I know.
opinion.
I feel the same way. I feel like some of these lists are like very reactive. So we just do the opposite. And it's just as funny to me. I'm like, you know, in 2020, because we've been doing this for a bit. In 2020, I remember it was like slow dating because of the pandemic. And it's so everybody, I'm like, bitch, they're just slow dating because
They can't go out.
can't go out. So like they have to. And then next year it was like, well, now the trend is going to be fucking everybody you want. And I was like, yeah, bitch, because the world just opened up and people are pent up. So like,
Yeah.
it's not some fucking rocket science.
Yeah.
It's just
It's
reaction to things
Yeah.
that are happening in basic forms of life, you know, and whatever extreme we go to, we tend to go to the other extreme the following year. So like last year was all about self-improvement. This year, everybody's like, fuck self-improvement. Like it's stupid to me.
Yeah, I feel like I often just feel like people are just saying these things. What I would love to see from like a list in the future is like, okay, this is what we experienced this year. What could we like, let's have some fun. Let's imagine what's going to happen next year, you know, and like try and do something like kind of crystal ball-y and like predictive of the future. Because I think this is just reporting on things that we've already experienced. It's like, okay, let's look at our climate, socially, politically, everything, the fucking stock market. Let's look at everything and just be like, how are people going to date in 2024?
Yeah.
And then like make a bunch of random guesses and see what happens, you know?
Yeah, totally. Rithu, this is so fun. I can keep talking to you, but we're, you know, we got to go.
We do got to go.
It's a podcast. But this was so fun to have you here. Guys, Rithu did her 6 questions. It was in the Ghosts of Relationships past episode, a few episodes ago, YouTube. You're going to have to see it. It's only an audio podcast right now. It'll come out later in the year on YouTube, but check it out on the audio podcast. YouTubers, this is your first time seeing Rithu. So, yay. How can everyone find you and all your amazing work and you?
You can find me on Instagram at Rithu Jagan. So RITHU JAGAN. And I will post all things about all the podcasts and projects that I'm working on. Sometimes it's video, sometimes it's photography, sometimes it's podcasts. So you'll get to see all that and travel.
Sometimes it's just her beautiful self and you can slide into DMs whenever you want. But only if you have emotional intelligence and intimacy.
Yes. And open-hearted masculinity.
Open-hearted masculinity. Guys, her socials and everything will be in the show notes of this episode. Make sure you follow Rithu. Thanks, girl.
Thanks, girl. I'm so happy to be here. I'm so happy we did this. This was so fun.
I know. Check. Well, thank you again. And guys, follow us too. We're on social media. We're at Kinda Dating across the board. I'm at Natasha Chandel on Instagram and Facebook, Natasha.Chandel on TikTok. Thank you so much for downloading this episode. If you like something you heard, screenshot the episode and tag us on social media. Finally, I know it seems tough out there, but just try. Happy 2024. I hope you guys enjoyed that video and check out our next one. Thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe to this channel for more amazing dating, love, and relationship advice from me and so many expert guests. Follow us on socials. We're at Kinda Dating across the board. I'm Natasha Chandel, so you can find me too if you like. And join our newsletter on www.kindadating.com for lots of exclusives. See you soon.